I want to talk about Judd Apatow's new special on Netflix called The Return. I feel that it's very relevant and congruent to what I talk about on my channel here, which mainly focuses on psychologically dealing with hair loss. So you know who Judd Apatow is. He's made all those movies like Knocked Up and This Is 40 and Funny People and all that. So you know who Judd Apatow is. Now in the opening, I've watched the first half of his special so far, The Return. And part of his bit is he's talking about how at best he's an average looking guy, but he's the epitome of he can be average looking and still end up with a very hot wife. So he talks about Leslie Mann being his wife, and she's in the movie Funny People. If you've seen that, she's one of the main stars. Well, like the co-star of This Is 40, married to Paul Rudd in that movie. So you know, she's basically a model, but she's in some of his movies. I don't know, you can really see it. So anyway, he's talking about how he is that stereotype that you can be an average looking guy and end up with a very attractive wife, which is my story too. We've all agreed and voted I'm a 6 out of 10. And I'm happy about that. I don't need to be 7 or more, because then I suddenly become preoccupied. Oh no, am I gonna lose my hair? I better keep looking Hollywood enough. I better do whatever it takes, like Chris Pratt possibly, to stay the Norwood 3 that he is. But a guy like me, I don't have to worry about that. Judd Apatow doesn't have to worry about that. He's, I think, Norwood 4 really. I mean, have you seen his wife, Leslie Mann? Why was she not some kind of major model to begin with, right? And that's his whole point. And then he has people in the front row stand up, like basically 4 guys in a row. He says, you guys are basically just another version of me. He's like, okay, you're the more ethnic version of me. You're the guy that's got a better beard than me. You're the guy that's got less hair than me. But ultimately, you're all me. He said, so he talks about this concept. And I talk about it all the time, that the natural default thing to do when you start realizing that you are possibly showing signs of hair loss is to think, oh no, now girls won't like me. But see, that's the mentality of a teenage boy coming out in the words of a 21-year-old guy, because he had banked on his hair as a teenager, and now Norwood 1's kicking in, maybe Norwood 2's kicking in, maybe even Norwood 3 maybe. And instead of reinventing himself and his identity, he wants to hold true to what worked for him in high school and early college years. And then you've got a guy like Judd Apatow, who, with hair or not, is just your average looking guy at best. So why is it though? Is it because he's worth $90 million? Well, he and his wife, he said, have been married over 20 years. And 20 years ago, we weren't talking about Judd Apatow. 20 years ago, he hadn't even made his TV series Freaks and Geeks yet. We weren't talking about Judd Apatow 20 years ago. Yet, he still ended up with Leslie Mann. To me, it's so obvious. One of the superpowers you have as a male is that you don't have to depend on your looks in order to get what you want. Now, I feel that something that's part of the identity of the female gender is, and some identify this with feminism and some don't, but that a female can use her sexuality to get what she wants. Okay? Men are the opposite of that. They can not depend anything about their physical attractiveness and still get what they want. And I've talked about this many times. How do you do this? Without depending on your looks, without depending on your hair, how do you end up, like me, a 6 out of 10 with a wife who is as attractive as she is? How do you end up like Judd Apatow, who he claims he's just an average looking guy, and then you look at his wife? How did that happen? What did average guys like me do to end up with such an explicitly attractive female? How does that happen? With or without hair, being average looking. Because even this, you could be kind of an ugly dude with perfect hair, you're still ugly, right? So really, we're talking about physical attractiveness in general, and the belief that that has something major to do with you ending up having an attractive girl be attracted back to you. I've said this so many times. You want to attract a female? Okay. Be funny. Be skilled. Be confident. Be helpful. Be a leader. Show her that you care about her and other people. Be confident. Know who you are. Be the most confident person in the room, but don't be conceited. Little things like that. Be a good communicator. That's another one. Be helpful. That's the secret. But so many of you have, unlike me, you're still plugged in. You're plugged into the system and believing that your hair is one of the main things that attracts females to you. That's why average guys have an advantage. Do you realize that? Okay, this is the weirdest thing that I'm about to say based off of talking about Judd Apatow to go to this. But in the Bible, there was one point where Jesus was talking to the people. And this one rich young ruler said, Lord, I've done everything. I've done everything that the law says that I'm supposed to do. Do I get to go to heaven? And Jesus says, no. Go and sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And the rich young ruler walked away in sadness because he wasn't willing to do that in order to reach the kingdom of heaven. He had too much to lose. He was rich and young. But all the average people, they had less to lose. And so they could look at Jesus' disciples. They dropped whatever they were doing on the spot and followed him. And it's kind of that way with average looking dudes. It's a blessing to be an average looking dude. You don't have to depend on your hair. You don't have to depend on your looks. You have to depend on other things for people to like you and for females to be attracted to you. And ultimately, just to be liked and appreciated. Being average is a good thing. And it's a matter of making up for it in all the ways that society needs you to. The things that they actually are needing from you and judging you for. But until you unplug, until you get woke, you won't be able to follow the words that I speak.